Welcome everyone, and a bit sad that we didn't have music today, but hopefully for the next one we will not miss it. So welcome to the first peer-to-peer session. So your first team building journey starts from today, and today we will be having the discussions on thematic learning, as well as we'll have team ice-breaking activities in breakout rooms. So today we have almost all of us present, our acting director, Ms. Rekha Tosha, and my colleague, Ms. Enjitho, and then your facilitators, Mr. John Yu and Ms. Alexia McAuliffe-Gatt. So let me quickly introduce you to the agenda. So of course, we will talk about the purpose of the session, and then we will reflect on the background of the identity envelope exercise that hopefully most of you have done already. Can I just quickly check, are we recording the session?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So we will talk about the identity envelope exercise, and then Alexia and John, they will introduce themselves to you, explaining their identity envelope. So hopefully it helps you get them know a bit better. And then we will work on it. We will talk about a framework called the TRUE framework. It has been used in teaching and learning setting universally, and then in teacher training as well. So we will introduce this framework in the context of giving you a tool for the action learning phase. And then we'll have two breakout rooms. The first breakout room is, of course, will be on exploring the identity envelope exercise in the context of particularly the first dimension of TRUE framework called content. And then second breakout room, we will give you an opportunity to talk about the thematic knowledge that you have been building during self-learning phase. And then we'll come together as a group and we'll explore some question and answer and have a group discussion. So what is the purpose of session? I have actually covered most of it. Get to know your facilitators better, and then understanding the values and significance of, pedagogical practices through a simple activity such as the identity envelope. And then we will prepare you for the action learning phase through the team and group discussions today. We'll not be having specific teams that will be working through action learning phase from today. You will receive who are your team members before the next peer-to-peer session. So just keep that in mind. And then we will give you, of course, the chance to discuss what we covered during self-learning phase. And please, we highly encourage you, to those of you, you have to do this exercise. This is mandatory as part of your certification from this school collaboration. So if you go to the announcement section as well as the, the peer-to-peer session, you will see the exercise link. So please follow the link. And if you haven't finished it yet, you have to finish it by the end of today or latest by tomorrow. And why are we doing this identity envelope exercise? So, we as individuals, we really hold some core values that defines us, right? We come from different backgrounds. All of you are coming from diverse backgrounds, so you hold diverse values. Those values define you. So we wanted to understand who you are in terms of your identity through those values. That's why we have done the identity envelope exercise. So we want to kind of, encourage you to reflect on your identity in the context of sustainable development. So thanks to those of you who have done the exercise, we got an overview of what kind of values you hold that makes you an advocate for sustainable development. And then we hope that through today's discussion, you will deepen your understanding on the exercise as well as understand your peers' value. And then we will reflect on these values in the context of teaching and learning for sustainable development. So let's invite your first facilitator, Mr. John Yu from Asia. So he's from Singapore to share his identity envelope and talk about, the significance of the exercise as he introduces himself. Please, John.
All right. Hi, everyone. Woohoo! I've been eyeing all of you in the past sessions and reviewing some of the videos to check out how participative you are in terms of what you bring and who you are in this exciting journey. All of you are blessed, and we are living in a very challenging, yet a very educative season of global change, especially in view of the pandemic as well as the climate change crisis. So myself, Very simple. I am quite good looking, quite smart, quite crazy, and very humble. Okay. Just joking. I chose these 3 pictures because it talks about my journey in understanding sustainability, appreciating the environment, ecosystem, ecology, as a biologist, as a teacher, educator in our National Institute of Education, as well as an advocate. I'm not sure about you, but if I explain myself in terms of these 3 pictures, very often I go from the bottom. A lot of people say I can't do it because the mentality of driving climate change and being an advocate oftentimes make you a part of the marginalized team. People often pay lip service to say that they care about the education of climate change and the environment, but yet they struggle in advocating it. Advocating for change and sustainability is not always being aggressive. In fact, the most sustainable way is to create a collective mindset to say, I can do it, we can do it, and we want to do it. And that to me makes advocating climate change and bringing that personal touch to a collective level where we can celebrate success in the work that we do. My first picture from Oregon State University talks about juxtaposition. To juxtapose is a form of contrast. But contrasting is not always in opposition. You contrast, as you see the first photograph, of a leaf that has wilted, leaving just the vein, the venation of the leaf, versus the globe that has become white. Of course, we can think about how carbon dioxide has changed the way that global warming is causing that pain. At the same time, my friends, what is important is not about, hey, let's fight for a cause, but how do you raise up that level of awareness, especially in our young people today? What do they feel? What do they learn from the school? If the school forms the curriculum, how much do they learn from it? And my last photograph is about my 2 pets. I actually adopted these 2 lionhead rabbits, and yeah, if you want, I can show you. I'll show it to you during the action learning phase. Okay, so I adopted them because they were abandoned after in the Chinese horoscope year, the rabbit year. All right, so a lot of parents buy rabbits for kids and cute bunnies, but they abandon them when they lose the cute factors. And that pains me because it talks about our responsibility. Our responsibility not just to our pets, but our responsibility to the environment that we reside. And being a parent of 2 teens, I wouldn't call them teens, but they're old. They're at an age where it says, Daddy, leave me alone. You know, I'd rather go out with my girlfriend. Yeah. As a parent, my job is to prepare the environment for them to flourish. And that is my calling. What are you doing? And what's your heartbeat as an educator? And why are you in this program? I look forward to learning from you. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you for a very lovely introduction and for explaining your values. So now we invite your facilitators from Europe, Miss Alexia Mikhalevgat, to share her identity envelope with you and then share her values with you as an educator and advocate for sustainable development. So please, Alexia.
Okay. So for the first picture, I chose an image where different people from different cultures, different abilities, but also different challenges work together. And I think this is important both in our everyday life to realize that we depend on one another to be able to be successful and members of a society, whether we are looking at it from a local community or whether we are looking at it from a more global perspective. So ultimately, I don't believe that certain people are responsible for certain things. I believe that there's a shared responsibility, and this is, as I mentioned, both in our everyday life, that I value the contributions of others, even children, but also when it comes to being responsible for our planet and for trying to make sure that we take care of it as much as possible. The second image is the one with all the brains and all the information. And maybe if many of you are educators, you might relate to this. I feel that I like my job as an educator because I like to learn, but I also like to share what I am learning. And this also, I feel, is a good follow-up to working in a community, because I truly believe that there's something I can learn from everyone, even the youngest of my students, and there is something I can share and communicate back. And once again, I feel that this is very true in my everyday life, but also when it comes to climate action. So sometimes the youngest students would know of certain little things that they do to help the climate, and that they can teach me as an adult, and I can share it once again. So once again, this idea of community, shared responsibility, but from a more learned perspective. And finally, motivation. I think it is useless to be in a community to learn from one another if there isn't motivation to act. So I think that's a very important aspect, motivation also. That I am motivated as an individual, but I help motivate others too. And once again, this applies both to my everyday life, but also when we are looking at supporting and making the right decisions and actions in response to taking care of our planet. So I think these three images were the right balance between describing myself and my values as an individual, but also specifically with regards to sustainability and climate action. I hope that was okay and everything was clear from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexia. So thank you for for explaining your identity envelope. So just everyone's reference, in case you haven't heard Alexia clearly, community, responsibility, and motivation came very strongly from Alexia's explanation. So hopefully it gave you a chance to also reflect on your own identity. So let's move on to understanding the TRUE framework. So TRUE was introduced by Professor Schoenfeld from University of California, Berkeley. So the TRUE stands for T for teaching, R for robust, U for understanding. And it's a framework for characterizing powerful learning environments in a very precise and very quick, crisp and actionable ways. And it provides a straightforward and accessible language for discussing what happens not only in classroom, but also in teachers' professional preparation and development. And it focuses on classroom and administrative attention on what counts in learning. So as most of you, I think you can relate to this, that as an educator, you are not only acting in your classroom, you're going in a classroom and teaching, but also you do administrative activities, right? So for both your administrative activities and for classroom actions, this framework supports teachers to kind of focus on what really matters in terms of learning. Why are we using this framework? So usually in general, frameworks are really helpful tools for communicating complex practices with others. And of course, as you know, teaching is a complex practice as well. And we are using the framework so that together with the identity envelope, so that you can enact your values, and we want to help you to also capture them in a way so that you can communicate them to your peers. And as you investigate this framework and work on this framework further during the next peer-to-peer session, we hope that you will have the chance to customize this framework that is aligned with your values. So the framework is a tool for you, but then you need to act on finding your own values and activating them. So all in all, we hope that through working through this framework, as well as the identity envelope exercise, you will, find find the relevant tools to build innovative practices that kind of encourage you to embrace the type of teaching that you aspire to. Because, you know, as a ASAP ClassNet community, our goal is not to give you clear direction in terms of what innovation means, innovative teaching practice means. It's rather facilitating that process so that you can find what kind of teaching practices that are important for you, that are aligned with your values. So let's go through very quickly what are the 5 dimensions. We will not be explaining what each of these are because we will work on this for the next peer-to-peer session, and you will have some pre-reading for next session as well. So the first dimension of the TRUE framework among the 5 dimensions that it has is called content. Second one is cognitive demand. The third one is equitable access to content. Of course, you need to ensure that all of your students are having access to the content, equal access to the content. And the fourth one of the most important ones, is agency, ownership, and identity. I think we all know that teachers' agency and students' agency in a teaching and learning context are really important for better learning outcome, better teaching and learning environment. And of course, teaching is not without assessment. So the last dimension of this framework focuses on formative assessment. So let's go through the content first, because you will be participating in the first breakout room activities depending on this first dimension. So the content, it says that the extent to which classroom activity structures provide opportunities for students to become first knowledgeable, flexible, and resourceful disciplinary thinkers. Discussions are focused and coherent, providing opportunities to learn disciplinary ideas, techniques, and perspectives, make connections, and develop productive disciplinary habits of mind. So disciplinary habits of mind is quite crucial. So now we invite John to share some videos and then have a quick discussion on this content aspect so that you can understand it a bit better. Please, John, go ahead.
All right.
Let me stop maybe sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Okay. So I'm back. All right, guys. And thanks to Alexia. Alexia is a wonderful lady. We're excited to work with her. At the same time, ladies and gentlemen, as I take you through the first domain in the TRUE framework, data word true and through, the challenge here really is this: why are we even looking at the content? And how does this tie into your personal values, your beliefs, and your position as an educator, especially for sustainable development? Oftentimes, teachers model the way. A lot of the learning, especially in terms of designing for agency, getting students to own their own ideas and to believe in their stand. The unsaid, the unspoken part of learning is actually caught, not just taught, but caught. Caught because what you stand for, how you design a curriculum, how you approach a lesson truly models and speaks for your students. I'm saying this because I've been in the education service myself, having been a teacher for 25 years. Yeah, I look young, right? I have been a school principal in both Singapore as well as in Korea before I pursued my PhD. And this is where I strongly believe that a good educator, an outstanding educator, models the way. This is a project that I just consulted for a Thailand school that looks at STEM. And let me show you 3 short videos. And I'd like to hear your response to how this teacher have effectively modeled her beliefs in terms of designing inquiry-based learning around environmental issues, meaning water pollution in a canal near her school, and how students caught her beliefs. 3 short videos, and I'm going to invite you to type into the chat box in a short while. But enjoy the videos. These are videos of the teacher and her students from Thailand, Sinsapket. And this is the first video of the teacher, one of the first lessons as part of the STEM program.
าราโตได้ได้ไปตรงศาลานั้นได้เลยศาลาตรงนี้ก็ได้ศาลาตรงอาจารย์ต่อแล้วก็ศาลาตรงเพื่อนตรงโน้นมันต้องเป็นพื้นที่แบบนี้ลูกถึงจะหย่อนได้การสะพานนั้นก็ได้ลูกสะพานไปไหนลูก
So that was the first video of the teacher modeling the inquiry process using an experimental method for students to examine, to study, and to investigate how polluted the water really is. She brought them to the canal. She showed just the method without preaching and asked them, how polluted do you think this canal was? So that was the first part, that she got students to inquire, to be curious. And the canal actually is very, very close to the school. Let me show you now the second video, what happens back in the classroom. So the students are now given various tools and things like charcoal, like gravel, like rocks, and a lot of plastic bottles for them to learn how to purify the water. Did she teach the purification process? No. She allowed them to explore and say, based on your knowledge, based on research, what ways can we purify this water? Let's check it out.
Is a filter, water filter.
How many times?
Water filtering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why 2 levels?
2 levels. Because the first step, okay. So here, can you see here? It's not clearly, and you have to filter it in 2 levels.
Very cool.
And 4-point. We will stick with it. Stick with here. We're gonna put it's right here, and have a 4-point right here, and the water will fall and get into here. And it's here. And here is the wow.
So that was the second video where students in their groups started to investigate how might they purify water from the canal. And the inquiry process is really for them to experiment and try out. And you can see they have tried many ways of doing it. This is a short final video that is just less than 1 minute, where it's very funny because the Thai student says, it's good, but it's not so good, right? And this makes learning of the environment a lot closer to heart. Check this out. This explains why oftentimes when we teach in schools, some of the learning is not caught because it's not real to them. But this shows that students find learning very real in a very sustainable way. Okay. Jyoti, tell me if you can see the video,
Yes.
Jyoti.
Yes, we can.
Why do you smell? Why?
Not bad, but not full.
Huh?
Not bad, but not full.
What?
Not bad, but not full.
Oh. Not bad, but not good.
Yes.
So the smell?
กินเป็นไง I think the smell is good.
The smell is good.
Yes. เฮ้ยมันเจ๋งเราใส่ฟองไปอีกรอบนึง
I like. I love it when the girls told me, wow, professor, not bad, but no good. So I quickly ran over and I asked, why not bad, but no good? And they said this, it is not bad because the water came out as clear. The water that filtered out came out as clear, and they were very happy. But within 10 seconds, their face looked sad because they were smelling the water and saying, why is the water so smelly? That was an aha to me. So, ladies and gentlemen, it makes learning about environment and issues around sustainability development very close to heart. Based on the 3 videos, I'd like you to tell me, how does the content, in this case here, the content is about learning how my students learn to purify water from the canal, right? How might the content help your students to become knowledgeable, flexible, and resourceful disciplinary thinkers? Based on what you watched in the 3 videos, could I invite you please to type in the Zoom chat below under how do you think that content, how do you think that teacher, how do you think that learning help them to be knowledgeable, flexible, and resourceful? I look forward to everyone typing something in. Let's go! Woo!
I think perhaps alternatively, they can also raise their hand or speak up. If that's
Sure.
okay.
I love to hear people. I love to hear your voices. So you could either raise your hands or, okay, but let me make sure that I can see everybody. View options. Right. Either speak up or type in the chat. How do you think the students have become more knowledgeable, flexible, and resourceful? And these 3 terms are actually taken from the first domain of Truth Framework, right? And today, later on today, Jody and team is going to explain a bit more why Truth Framework is important. But let's go. Anybody?
I'm not sure if Neem want to share something because she said that great to see inquiry learning in action. Maybe, oh, okay. Oh, she also typed, maybe John, you could.
Yeah.
Hi.
let's have-
yes,
Yeah.
No, I think it's yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of things there. I mean, I don't know, but you showed the video, they already had their sort of filters set up. I suppose I don't know if there was much guidance given to them in terms of how they would do that or what materials they would bring in order to do that. But I suppose there would have to be some brainstorming and sort of flexibility around what they would need, what they could gather and where they could obtain that. So they'd have to be resourceful in that way. I do really like the idea that it's their own local community, you know, their own area that they're looking at the pollution there. So the knowledge that they would get from that, I suppose, hopefully it would stay with them, and that through the seasons and through different, you know, times of the year and different events that may happen in their community, that they might always be curious of what the level of pollution would be, you know, in the canal, or what effect that would have on the canal. And I mean, hopefully the resourcefulness could come from as well the idea that if there is quite a lot of pollution there, what effects that would have on the wildlife and what they could do to prevent that, or how that they, you know, as a community, is there anything that they could put in action or make more awareness maybe among the local community, etc., of what's happening, you know, in that environment.
Excellent. That was so insightful. Thank you, McNally. Thank you. That was beautifully articulated. You're right. You're right, because the teacher didn't exactly teach them the purification process. But what the teacher did make available were the resources. So the kind of gravels, what is needed, students needed to do a bit of research in class to purify the water. And that to me is real inquiry, because it is, in fact, to me, one of the most challenging types of inquiry, the open inquiry, where there is clear learning outcomes, but students themselves have to design and map out the strategies, the techniques. And that allowed them to have the hands-on process. You're right, hands-on process, right? So thank you, Nita, as well. Thank you. So in fact, to Christina's point, it is a real problem. And ladies and gentlemen, if we talk about sustainability issues, one of the gaps that I see in a lot of classrooms around the world is that environmental issues around sustainability is still very often taught to the head knowledge. Students don't feel that it's real because it's so far away, it's so distant. And that's why Anka Babu, thank you for saying that it is learning by doing. You're right. They learn by doing, and the teacher models the process. I just want to end off. Thank you also for your generous thoughts and feedback. But one of the things that I feel the teacher herself model is this. She could have just taught the lesson and say, do this experiment, tell me your results. But she chose the path less taken, which is getting students themselves to look for the problem. It wasn't just about problem solving, but getting them to identify the problem. And that to me is a very important part of teaching for student agency that we're going to talk about later on. Excellent feedback, guys. And Jody, back to you because this question goes with everyone else.
Thank you, John. So now we are going to go to the first breakout room discussion on identity envelope in the context of True Frameworks content, especially for the question number 2. So I have already created the breakout room. So before I explain the questions, let me quickly let you know. John, you are in room 1. Alexia, you were in room 2, so you will be facilitators for those rooms and responsible for recording the breakout room session. And I will be in room 3, and Rekha, you will be in room 4. So please, all of you, sometimes we see that you are coming back to the main room. Please try to be in the breakout room until the session ends. So let me quickly post this on the chat box. So if you go to this chat box, you will see the True Framework image. So when you are having the discussion and you want to look at the content information, so it's there in the Google slide. So it's the same link for everybody. And maybe during the session, one of you could share the screen so that all of you can look at the screen when you are discussing. And then also let me quickly, maybe NG or Rekha, if you could also copy the questions in the chat box so that everybody has in the chat box as well. So when we are having it on chat box, the first question is, of course, discussing how the exercise made you feel and activate your core values as an individual as an advocate for sustainable development. And the second question, the most important one, how does the first dimension of the True Framework content reflect your values, position, and beliefs around sustainable development? And then the last one, how can you use this insight from this exercise into building innovative teaching practices? So we really encourage you to have an open and interactive conversation, as interactive as possible. With that, I'm going to open the breakout room. So we will keep the breakout room open for about 20 minutes. But I will check, if you are done with your conversation, so that we can, if you are done with the conversation, we can also close it in 15 minutes. So I'm opening the breakout rooms now. So with this, we are done with all the breakout room discussions. So we would like to highlight again, the purpose of this discussion is to kind of get you started, break the ice for team discussion, so that when you are on action learning phase working in teams, you can focus on this. So the key idea is aligning your values with the innovative teaching practices you are building, looking at the True Framework, and then looking at each dimensions to kind of figure out how your innovative teaching practice address all those. So that was the key idea. So hopefully you got some pointers for having constructive and structured team discussion. So with that, we are almost at the end of the first team building and peer-to-peer session. So let me quickly let you update you on what's next. So of course, we'll have the second peer-to-peer session. And for this session, you will already know before the session begins who are your team members. And you will embark on ideation and discussion for the designing innovative teaching practices. So hopefully today you have the tools. And then during next session, you will be learning more about the tools, especially on the True framework. So there will be some pre-reading. We'll upload those reading on e-learning platform. So please look out for those updates in e-learning platform. There will be one exercise, and you will have the instructions ready in the learning platform on how to do the exercise on True framework. Basically, what we will ask you is to kind of find an adjective. For example, if I give an example, let's say curious, right? So replace that word curious with the True framework says, if I quickly go back here, you can see the 5 dimensions of powerful classroom. So you will replace powerful with the adjective you choose. It could be creative, curious, interactive, engaging, whatever you decide, whatever that aligns with your value. And then you will replace this content or add the content that are that reflects that value that you want to integrate into this framework. So in a way, the purpose of doing this exercise is mainly because of, we said earlier during today's discussion that we want you to align your values with the type of teaching you want to aspire to. So that's the exercise you'll be doing for prior to the next session. So with that, I think we're done with today's session. Thank you so much for actively participating. Thank you so much to John, Alexia, and Rekha also for taking the lead on the breakout room discussions, and Angie for patiently recording and navigating between main room and breakout room sessions. So all of you in Asia, you have a very lovely evening, afternoon, and in Europe, have a wonderful day. Thank you.